Hi, are you ready for a new beginning? Let me tell you, Noah and his family certainly were. They had been on that ark for 377 days. Their first week was spent just waiting, them and the animals waiting for something to happen. Then 40 days of horrendous rain, enough to cause the ark to rise and float, followed by another 110 days, storms. Tossing and turning, going around and around, possibly the entire earth, maybe staying just in that Mesopotamia area. We're not sure. We just know the flood went everywhere. Then 5 months came of just sitting in the ark, waiting for the waters to go down. Down, down, down. Then after that, the waters have receded, but they spend another 2 months in the ark. They're waiting for everything to dry out. Oh, no, not just dry out. To become devastated by the drought, for everything to wither, for the earth to become crusty, to it become like a desert. Very little water anywhere. Noah and his family get off the boat, and everything they knew before is gone. Now, let's imagine. Think about it. You are Noah. Put your mind in a new mindset. How would you respond if you had just come through the hardest time of your life? Then, after a year and 17 days inside that ark, you finally get off and you come into a world that is destroyed. You look about and maybe there's dead bodies of animals and people. Anyway, there are bones, fallen trees that have been stripped. Buildings that should have been there are all gone. As a matter of fact, everything that you knew and everyone that you knew, they're gone. You're left alone. Just you and 7 other family members. How would you respond? What would be the first thing you would do? Some might be angry at God, feel a sense of fear. How am I going to ever start again? Feeling sadness over everything that's lost. Maybe feeling a sense of relief. Oh, I'm finally off that boat. Well, I doubt that many of us would have done what Noah did. Genesis 8:20. Coming off the ark, the very first thing. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord and took every clean animal and of every clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. After leaving the ark, Noah immediately built the first recorded altar in Scripture and sacrificed an offering of thanksgiving to the Lord. Wow. Not what most people would do, but that's the response that probably caused Noah to find grace in God's eyes and the very reason that he was the one to survive the flood. Noah had a life of purpose. Even before the flood and before his birth even, his father gave him a name and prophesied that his life would affect all people because of what God was going to do on the earth. Going back to Genesis 5, verse 29, Lamech, his father, said, "And he called his name Noah, saying, 'This one will comfort us concerning our work and the toil of our hands because of the ground which the Lord has cursed.'" And that's exactly what happened after the flood. God had cursed the ground. But Noah was one to rise up and to start life over again on earth. He was the one that God had put in his heart because he followed the Lord to start again with his family and begin a brand new civilization. So Noah offered a sacrifice. He offered a sacrifice of all the clean animals that were preserved on the ark. And, God made provision for this back in Genesis 7. He was told to take 2 of every kind of animal on the ark. But in Genesis 7:2, you shall take with you 7 each of every clean animal, a male and his female. So God was preparing Noah in advance for this sacrifice. Moses did not give the clean and unclean commandment about animals for centuries yet, but Noah knew instinctively what God wanted. He knew how to please God. And because of that, Genesis 8:21 tells us, and the Lord smelled a soothing aroma. Then the Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground for man's sake, although the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth, nor will I again destroy every living thing as I have done. You see, back before the flood ever happened, while Noah was in the process of receiving instructions of how to put the ark together, God made a promise to Noah. Way back in Genesis 6:18, he says, but I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall go into the ark, you and your sons and your wives and your sons' wives with you. That was kind of strange, wasn't it? He didn't give him any specifics then. He just says, I'm going to give you an ark, a covenant. He says, I'm going to make a covenant with you. And he didn't tell him what it was about. He just said, go into the ark. Maybe Noah even thought that going into the ark and the ark was his safety was going to be the covenant. But here, God discloses what some of those details are. And we discover that the covenant was an everlasting covenant for Noah, his family, the animals, the earth, and even for us today. And the details of this covenant will continue through next time. They'll go all the way through Genesis 9:17. That God smelled a soothing aroma indicates to us that God found the offering acceptable. And he was pleased with what Noah had to offer him. And so God begins to make his covenant. And the very first thing that God promised was never to curse the ground again, despite knowing that the condition of man had not changed. God said right here, the imagination of a man's heart is evil from his youth. This was the very first charge with which the flood stories began. In Genesis 6:5, then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And so we have it here in 8:21 when the flood ends. We have it back in Genesis 6:5 when the flood began. We can look at these two things as bookends. They're drawing attention to what's in the middle, and what's in the middle is the flood and what the flood did because of the wickedness of men. But even though there was this great wickedness, God promised an overwhelming judgment like the flood would never again be repeated. The flood account begins and ends with the 2 verses about our universal sinfulness. And this fact is so vital to our understanding both the reason for and the result of the flood. You see, the result of the flood did not change our sin problem. It didn't make everybody perfect from then on. We're going to find out that as we follow Noah and his family throughout the next couple of chapters. You see, immediately after the flood, even while Noah was still offering his acceptable offering to the Lord, God reminded him of this fact. Goes up and follows with the New Testament that says in Romans 3:23, for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. You see, even with eliminating all but 8 people from the face of the earth, the sweeping flood did not resolve or correct man's condition. The conditions and the sinfulness of people after the flood, it was just like it was before the flood. The purpose of the flood was not to eliminate evil. We see it happening today. Men try to defeat evil by violence. They think maybe we can get rid of it if we punish everyone that's evil, that we'll just cause them to be good. But that doesn't happen. The flood revealed that while death and destruction are the result of evil, death and destruction themselves cannot solve the problem of evil. And even though Genesis 6 through 8 reveal that sin and depravity are within the heart of all people, God still gives hope of his grace that comes after a flood that could never change the heart of man. Well, if the flood did not eliminate evil, what was the purpose? Why have that come and destroy the earth and all the people and all the animals on it except those that were saved? Well, evil existing after the flood was a warning for all of us. It exposed our need to discover deliverance of God's grace that can only come with the gift of his Son, Jesus. Way back in the Garden of Eden, after Adam and Eve's sin, God made a promise. His promise was that one would come through the seed of a woman that would crush the head of the serpent, and that's Satan. Jesus was the promised one. He was the Son of God, but he had to be born of a virgin. Genesis 6 tells us that before the flood, the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and evil was spreading rapidly. The sons of God had come down, and they were taking all the women that they wanted to. And so to ensure that wickedness did not inflict every human, and especially the women, God sent the flood to preserve Noah, who was a righteous person. And it was through one of Noah's descendants the promised seed was delivered. And it is because of Jesus' shed blood and the Father's great love that our hearts can be changed. And just like Noah, we can find grace in the eyes of the Lord. Yes, we were born into a world of wickedness. Yes, we were born into sin. All have sinned. But God promised deliverance. God promised grace through believing in his Son Jesus. The flood teaches what happens to multitudes of people who only pursued evil. But God used Noah to teach us what happens if only one person believes in God, follows him, and lives a life for godliness and righteousness. What happens then? We receive God's grace and life that only he can give. And what does this grace include? It includes everything that he gave Noah. Guidance. He let Noah know in advance exactly how to build the ark, what to take on the ark, who to bring on the ark. That same guidance will help you. He will guide you in your daily life. He will give you steps of action. He will help you to know what you need to do. God's grace gave Noah protection. The world around him was destroyed, but Noah was safe within that ark. God will protect you from the storms of life. He will protect you from every evil thing that tries to come against you. Deliverance from the floods of violence. That's what Noah saw. The floods were more than just floods bringing down water. They destroyed everything. There was violence all around him. Noah was protected from that. As you look at the world around you, you see violence everywhere. If you haven't seen it lately, just flip on the news. You're sure to see it. Pick up the headlines. Turn on the internet. Violence is everywhere. Destruction is everywhere. But God's grace can protect you from that. And also, it protects you from the evildoers. Noah was a preacher of righteousness. It said for 120 years. But you know, during those 120 years, it says the people mocked him, but no one harmed him. He was building the ark as a symbol of what was going to happen, but no one destroyed it. The evildoers were doing evil all around and doing it to everyone else, but Noah was safe. If you need safety, if you need protection, if you need guidance, if you need deliverance, come to Jesus. God's grace is what you need. He will protect you. He will give you grace to walk through the storms. Doesn't mean he's going to keep you through from all the hard times. Noah went through the hard times. Noah saw heartbreak when God closed the door and his family was left behind. But Noah was kept safe and he had hope. God will give you hope because of what his son Jesus did. And it's hope for today and hope for tomorrow. Because Jesus Christ, he is the same yesterday, today, and forever. That's the only hope you need.